Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be covering a ramp dragon deck which was given to me by another Nexus member by the name of Limits, and it's pretty straightforward by the looks of it. So we go for the early, Blazing Breath, clear out most early game. Breath of Salamander clears out early and mid, and Conflagration, Conflagration, stupid card name. Deal 4 damage to all followers, so that's pretty straightforward. We got a nice amount of board clear. Sybil, of course, being a tank, killing off pretty much all aggro decks, slowing everything down. And then the late game, which is just damage, clears, and more pressure, I guess. Other than that, Dragon Summoner pulls dragon cards, and when you're running very, very few dragon cards, the odds are really nice. I mean, this is a dragon follower, so even better, you're only really got Sybil and Dragonite and Genesis, I guess. So that's 3 with a total of 7 cards. So your odds of pulling are pretty good. Other than that, this deck's pretty good. I mean, I haven't had a lot of testing with it, and I'm not a big dragon player, so misplays will be expected. So please don't roast the hell out of me for them at the moment. Still getting used to it, but this deck's definitely pretty good. I can see it being strong. You can tech different things, obviously. Genesis can swap for auros and stuff like that. But hopefully you guys enjoy it, and we'll get right into the games. So I thought we'd get our first match out of the way. It's a dragon versus dragon, so a kind of mirror match. Mind you, there are a few different ramp dragon variants because you can swap all different number of neutrals into the deck pretty easily. Whether you want to go for a Phoenix Roost variant or you want to go for a more neutral heavy, well, not really neutral heavy, but neutral focused, I guess, more Lucifers for healing and things like that. There's just a few different ways you can really tech this deck, I guess. I'm just, like I said, not a big dragon player, so not always going to make the best plays or judgments when it comes to a dragon deck, but it's definitely something I will do moving forward. So we have Breath of the Salamander and Double Dragonite. We had a pretty weak opener overall. I mean, it would have been nice to have had some ramp in the 2 spot, or just something that could be played onto the board like Dragon Summoner that would pull us more cards. Dragon Emissary, so they have an okay push. The Ivory Dragon coming down. They really haven't played much else, which is a good thing. So we do finally get Dragon Oracle, but I decided to go for the Dragon Knight again just to push them out, knowing that I can quite easily play Dragon Oracle in the next turn with a Blazing Breath if we need it. So we get to do a push of damage. I decide it's more beneficial to damage the opponent here. This game does go pretty quickly due to this early pressure that they just can't really contend with. You really are looking to ramp up, get to say 5 or 6, and then drop big threats and continually drop big threats while hitting your opponent with whatever you can. Fortunately, there's Zeus here, getting us some real damage in, plus the Evolve again. I decide 9 damage is worth it, only needing 4 more damage with plenty of options, and they end up conceding anyway. So our next matchup is against Forest. This one was a little tighter of a matchup just because they put down some really good pressure in the early and late game that I kind of had to keep dealing with. But in the end, we managed to outvalue them overall, which is what Dragon seems to be pretty good at. Ramp, value, trade, win, sort of thing. Like I said, I hope to cover more Dragon in the future, and that I've crafted up nearly all those Dragon cards I needed. This is quite an expensive deck at about 60k vials and a lot of legendaries. I don't know what you could sub in where, but you have got a few options when it comes to neutral substitutes, but I would recommend keeping most of the deck the same. Otherwise, just trying whatever you think would be best. So your optimal hand obviously would be the 2-drop ramp Dragon Oracle, maybe Dragon Summoner, and then probably straight into Dragon Knight or Grimnir, depending on which kind of opponent you're coming up against. Everything else can stay pretty similar. Draconic Fervor, turn 5 is still pretty good. The 3 heal double draw works both in the late game and mid game if you don't draw into Sybil. So here I decide, how do I want to deal with this? I thought I could go for the breath. I decide not to go with the breath just because the clear potential for the next turn would be much better. so Grimnir was fine as a wall. Although Grimnir can still be used as a clear at the late game, I haven't found it be quite as good. I'm not sure whether there is something else I could put in its place. Maybe a Rehab, but that's a 4-drop, not a 3-drop, so it's kind of a counterintuitive play, I guess. Just have to wait and see how the meta kind of settles in. At the moment, we're still pretty fresh, and we're trying to balance things out. But with 3 win streak in a row and a couple losses mixed in before that, this deck is doing alright, and the more I play it, the better I get at judging what kind of value I want. So we've got Beauty and the Beast. Luckily, Suckfeel played out with the Isfil is a great trade potential here. We get to keep it, we get to deal 2 damage, and we get to kill it all in one. Turn 8, get some value hopefully, play something out if we have to. I mean, I was trying to be careful because I really didn't want to be like Roached or anything, but it seems to be more of a neutral build. So I felt like Roach wasn't a big threat here because they weren't going to have a multiple Roach combo play out with 0 drops. Although being on 9 health is quite difficult, so the Fervor is a great way to proc that healing and get our hand filled up with enough things to deal with the board. Crystal and Aaron healing up my opponent. Great. Just what we need in this kind of matchup. To see our opponent get a good heal. Fortunately though, we do have the Isfil, which is a great healing card and a great damager. Just an overall great card. Not so great in any other deck, but I mean Dragon takes really good advantage of it. I suppose Rune can probably do it with its new neutral wallet rune, which is pretty good. And of course, Ultimate Carrot coming in there. Good trade, I guess, killing off the Isfil. Fortunately, we've also got our Bahamut, we've got our Zeus, and we have plenty of other cards to go along with that. I decide to Bahamut, clear him out completely and say, hey, deal with my big threat, which Forest doesn't tend to do the best with. Such a huge body can be quite hard for them to get over. They do play out a Roach, which I thought was a little odd if you're going to play just one, and then they Nature's Guidance and pretty much do nothing. They were most likely looking for the draw and didn't get what they needed. And now our final matchup against Haven. Keeping things pretty fresh with those Haven classes. So we have the Dragonite, the Sacriel, and the Con, which is not great for your opener. And that's still not great, so Dragonite is our only decent ramp. Fortunately, you can nearly guarantee that you're going to have ramp in some shape or form in the early game. It's just a matter of how good your ramp ends up being. So luckily, Dragon Summoner being a solid 2-drop and Blazing Breath being a solid 1-drop. Unfortunately, Snow White is a hell of a counter to nearly everything in the 2 to 3 drop range. So you definitely want to watch out for cards like that in the future. Unfortunately, no Sybil and no Genesis, even though we didn't really want Genesis from that. And the Dragonite being a good card though, so why not? Triple in our hand now. Great way to go for the ramp. And Snow White doesn't trade particularly well overall. Unfortunately, the Banish does hit pretty hard, but it does waste their Banish for later game. So I thought, why not? We have the Dragonite, we have the Blazing Breath. Why not go for the trade, remove this Snow White while we have the option to do so. Get that 1 damage to face and force them into a different position. The only thing that would have been a threat is Priest, because the Banish is a pain in the ass, and I believe that is exactly what they play. But it does mean that we're pushing late game, they're pushing late game, and in most matchups against Haven, you can usually win with Dragon. I mean, if they're Seraph, this deck gets pretty stomped. If they aren't and they are Aegis, you can usually deal way more damage than they can deal in the short period of time, and they'll probably be wasting their whole Aegis turn just to play it out. So you can pretty much deal damage for 2 turns before they get a chance to. So, unfortunately, Sybil draw, so we do get at least some ramp. Going up to 8, so next turn will be a 9, and the healing taking us straight back up to 20 with a nice body. Curate though, healing for them, killing me off. Luckily though, Isafil's in range again, just like the last couple of games where Isafil does really well at knocking out anything with 7 health and getting good value. Fortunately, double blazing breath is okay. We can actually do stuff with that in the future if they play things like this. Beast Call. Priest does come down though. So why not go for the Isfil combo again, have 2 4s on board and wipe their board pretty much clean for this turn. We could have went with polymorphic roar, whatever that is, that one, but I decided to hold on to that for now, probably play it next turn if we have to. Plus I'm not really expecting anything big to come down from Haven, although it does turn out they have a pretty decent hand, which you will see in a moment. So they go for the clear. I decide, hey, clear board, roar's good, let's just play that out. Seems like a lot of Dragon decks are starting to use Roar more. Unfortunately though, that Bahamut being a critical death to me, luckily we have our own Bahamut as a counterplay, and a nice setup for our Zeus. So from this point, as long as they don't clear Bahamut, we have lethal. Unfortunately though, they do clear Bahamut, making things just that little more difficult. But we do have Roar, so why not play it out? I mean, we've already seen one Bahamut, so they're not getting rid of that in a hurry. And of course, we have a fairly decent array of options. The Isafil is good because it does heal us for 4, taking us straight back to 20. And allowing us to trade, deal 2 damage, and deal 5, so giving us a total of 7 damage to them. And the Zeus, which can be dropped in the next turn, will be another 5 plus the Roar, which will go off anyway. So that wraps up my look at this Dragon deck. Like I said in the beginning, there isn't too much I would know how to swap around. Maybe mixing up the numbers of neutrals here to whatever you want favorably. I didn't get to play Dreadsea yet, but I can see why it's in the deck. It fits quite nicely with things like Genesis Bahamut, which would be a really crazy late game play. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.